exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down, 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 down. Let's bring it down, 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 down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful, tell everyone to stand and shout loud, shout loud, shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down, down. Stand up and shout, stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up, stand up, shout it loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
Stay the at home. The Rona is spreading. The is no joke. It's no time to work or roam. The way you can fight it is simple, my friends. Just stay the at home. Now, technically, I'm not a doctor, but mother listen when I read a poem. So here I am, Sam Jackson, imploring you, keep your ass at home. If you want things to get back to normal, don't panic. Just use your dome. Wash your hands, stop touching your face, and stay the at home. Motherfucker, it's no time to gamble. Look around, you're not at a casino. Just stay the home as if your name was Trenton Quarantino. Sure, you can still see your friends. Use the mother app on your phone. But unless you just ran out of groceries, please stay the at home. Thank you for doing your part to flatten the curve, because that is steep. And now that you're home, please feel free to go the to sleep. The end.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Eric Dawson Radio Show. Ask you to hit the share button. If you are not subscribers to our YouTube channel, I'd ask you to go and subscribe there as well. So there are a couple things that I want to talk about today. One of them is, and there are a couple things that I posted. Again, you can get an idea of the things that I want to discuss based on what I post throughout the day on my show. On my Facebook page. There are in Montclair, it is the largest per capita cases of COVID-19. I found out yesterday that a friend of mine, former co-worker, his wife, his 3 children, all diagnosed. We talked yesterday about a host of issues and the condition that poor and particularly black folks are in. I posted a video yesterday. I'm not even sure what town it's in, but I said this is what Arrested Development looks like. I mean, it looks like hundreds of black folk out partying and defying social distancing and such. Yesterday, Bernie Sanders endorsed Joe Biden. I sat and watched the most pathetic video between the two of them, and I want to have a conversation about that. I also posted on my page, and I meant to share this video, but you guys can go and see it. I meant to make it a part of the show. How does herd immunity work? There are conversations taking place around herd immunity and the importance of it. But herd immunity minus vaccines is dangerous. I put a very, very simple video up. And when I say simple, I mean not a whole bunch of complex terminology and things like that. Just kind of lays it out from A to Z. I put it up yesterday. I'll reshare it in this feed. You guys can check it out. I also put a note up there, and I said, we are focused on COVID-19, and I said, let us focus on being black, and I said, we cannot go back to business as usual. We're dying. And, I wanted to talk a little bit about that, and I saw some comments that people put in the thread regarding that, and then I got some phone calls, people asking me what I meant. And what I meant by that is this: I'm not saying that we shouldn't focus on COVID-19, but if we focus first on being black, and for poor people, or working poor, or struggling middle class, if you focus first on that, focus on your condition, right? And then look at everything that is occurring based on your condition. See, if you forget who you are and the condition that you're in, then you become preoccupied with, these distractions. Now, COVID-19 is serious, and so I don't just mean that it is a distraction that you ought not consider. But we see now, when we look at the disproportionate number of black folk who are dying as a result of it, that somewhere along the line, people weren't paying attention to the fact that we were black. And now they are. And I'm saying that we need to pay attention to that. And as we move forward through this and all the decisions that are being made about how to treat it, how to treat the different symptoms that are coming, because right now they can't treat the COVID-19. There is no treatment. So everything they're doing is treating symptoms to it. And as they're working to do that, they are ignoring the fact that we are black, or that we are poor, or we're struggling middle class. So they're throwing all these solutions at it, which is why I asked the question yesterday, are the proposed cures worse than the disease itself? And I guess it depends on where you stand, right? If I'm Warren Buffett, maybe the proposed cures are not worse than the disease. If I'm Bill Gates, maybe the proposed cures are not worse than the disease. Maybe if I'm a politician who is getting paid during all of this and has 2 or 3 pensions lined up because I've been in the game for 40, 45 years, maybe the cure isn't worse than the disease. But for those people who are struggling, those people who don't have pensions, those people who don't have job security or food security, maybe the struggle is, maybe the proposed cure is in fact worse than the disease. I just got a note on my phone. I guess you guys will probably see that too. It says former President Barack Obama will endorse his former running mate Joe Biden in a video message later on today. So I guess all the political elites, the ducks are lining up to wage war on whose behalf? Because they've been waging war one against the other, Democrats against Republicans, and as I've indicated several times, and data backs it up, we've not benefited. And I'm not just talking about black people in particular, but the poor people in this country have not benefited. So I'm looking at that headline, and it says Obama's gonna do that. I'm saying, okay, so what does that mean? And that's what I'm saying. We're focused on all these other things, whether it's COVID-19. Now we're going to be focused on whether Obama endorsed Joe Biden. We're focused on Bernie Sanders endorsing Biden. We're focused on Biden versus Donald Trump. And I'm saying, let's focus on our condition, right? Let's not get distracted by that, because none of these things that they do, and they do it every election cycle. This one endorses that one. These line up against that. But at the end of the day, there is no metric that they can produce that shows that poor people, and black people in particular, are better off. Now, we've had this discussion here on the show where when I challenged Barack Obama's presidency and said that black folks were not better off, I remember a year ago or so, people called in and were critical of me and critical of the other hosts of the show for saying that. But here we are now. We're looking at the condition of black America. It's front and center, right? Suffering from this disease, suffering from that disease, suffering from this other disease, suffering from this, suffering from environmental racism, suffering. So all of the advancements that they talked about were just illusions, right? Just distractions, just feel good things. But I told you, black folks here in America and poor people here in America have been subjugated and are viewed as the commodity to the wealth and to the power of those elites. And that's how they want to keep it. And so now these ideas of prescribing something for black people, looking into why black people are dying at disproportionate rates, looking at the disparity in healthcare treatment, looking at now, and it is embarrassing almost to see that a lot of black folks are falling into this emotional trap again, like they care about me. And I think Vincent said it on the show several times. This is a Stockholm syndrome, that you've just been abused and abused. And if you don't believe that you've been abused, just look at the headlines now. You'll see the abuse. And the headlines should really read, Black people abused for decades. Black people ignored for decades. Black people hoodwinked for decades. That's really what the headline should read. But it doesn't read like that, right? It reads, as though, somebody did something to black people. And then everybody over here, all of the decision makers, want to attack the somebody who did something to black people. And then black people say, well, yeah, we want you to attack them. But who are the people who did something? Aren't they the very ones who are now saying that they want to prescribe some remedy? Aren't they all part of the same thing? Like I looked at somebody sent me, and I gotta tell you, I'm cautious about what it is that I talk about, because I realize that folks inbox me now to take on fights that they don't have the courage to take on in the community. So they inbox things to me, hoping that I'll show up on the show and I'll talk about it. And then they find safe cover so they don't have to talk about it, right? But this one particular thing I'm going to spend a couple minutes talking about, and it was sent to me, and it said, in the middle of this COVID-19 thing, politicians are going out and they're endorsing people during the elections. Well, it's election season. This is what they do, right? They're animals. They're political animals. That's what they do. That's how they earn their living. That's their job. So the person who sent that to me, I was confused, baffled as to why you were even upset about this. This is who they are, and why we're continually surprised about who they are. I'm trying to find the thing that was sent to me so that I can look at it. But they sent it to me, and they wanted me to be shocked by it, and I really wasn't. But what I did want to point out, if I could find it, is that these people are people who will come out and they will endorse candidates for particular office, and I can't find it. I'm sorry. They will endorse candidates for particular offices, but then they won't hold those people accountable, right? So they'll come out, they'll put their name out there and say, I endorse this one, I endorse that one, I endorse this one. And in the end, how those people perform, they don't hold accountability for. It's kind of like if I made a recommendation to somebody and I said, you should hire John for this job, then I'm leveraging whatever credibility I have in that market space, and I'm saying, based on what you know about me and my high standards, I think that you should consider John for this position. And the person hires John. But I usually would have a conversation, and I've done that before, by the way. I've made those recommendations. But because I have such high standards, I have the conversations with the people, and I say, listen, I'm making this recommendation because I think you're qualified. I'm going to open the door, but you have to keep yourself in. And if you don't, I'm going to beat the brakes off of you, because at the end of the day, it impacts my ability to leverage that same level of high standard when recommending another opportunity for somebody or leveraging it for my own personal benefit. These folks, they have no high standards. They don't care. If you were to go back, and I found the flyer, so it's a flyer for the Board of Education. These candidates that are running in, they seem to be 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15 people who have endorsed these candidates, right? And Teresa Ruiz has endorsed them, Ron Rice, Elena Pintor, Shanique Spades, Cleopatra Tucker, Raz Baraka, Mildred Crump, Anibal Ramos, Augusta Amador, LaMonica McIver, John Sharp James, Joseph McCullum, Louis Quintana, Carlos M. Gonzalez, and Eddie Osborne. These people have endorsed these candidates. And many of these people have endorsed previous candidates. Many of these people have endorsed candidates that they no longer endorse anymore, right? Who are running, but they got kicked off the line. They got dismissed from being a part of the political elite, and so they don't endorse them anymore. What is the criteria by which these candidates are endorsed? And I'm going to ask that question again. What is the criteria by which these candidates are endorsed? And for all of you guys who support any of these politicians who are endorsing these candidates, what accountability do they have for the failure of the candidates that they endorse? So they endorse a candidate, right? So you voted for these senators or council members or whoever they are, and they go, after you elected them, they go and they leverage that title to go and endorse somebody. Is there any accountability in the endorsement? Is there any accountability to you as a person who voted for them? Is there any accountability in terms of achievements? Are they having conversations about what is expected of them? What measurable goals they hope to have them achieve over the 3-year period that they're going to be serving as board members? See, and the reason I'm saying this is this: I'm tying it all the way back to where we are now, right? That we were ill prepared in our community to deal with COVID-19. Ill prepared, lacked the education, lacked the job training, right? Lacked all of these things. And these folks who are blaming somebody, they're blaming somebody, and somebody's responsible for this. Somebody's responsible for the fact that black folks are dying at disproportionate rates, right? And they're dying because of these underlying conditions, and these underlying conditions are attributed to these factors. A lot of these factors, we put our thumbs on the scale to determine outcomes. But then we want to pull back and not take responsibility for all of these people. I got to ask, how long has Ron Rice been senator? I got to ask, how long has Cleopatra Tucker been assemblywoman? I got to ask, how long has Louis Quintana been councilman? I got to ask, how long has John James' family been a part of political decision-making in Newark? I got to ask, Augusto Amador, how long? I got to ask, Anibal Ramos, how long has he been around in politics? I got to ask, Carlos Gonzalez, how long? And none of them are responsible for any of the condition that we are in. They're not linked or tied to any of the failings of the people that they supported over all of the years, dozens in some case, years that they have been around. They literally want you to believe their hands are completely clean, that somebody else, probably the orange guy down in Washington, is responsible for the fact that you or your child or your grandchild isn't properly educated. That's them. Meanwhile, these guys endorse candidate after candidate after candidate after candidate after candidate to sit on a board of education, to establish policies, and are not being held accountable for it. I literally hope so. When I say to you guys, in these elections, I'm going down ballot and I'm voting down ballot in these elections, it's because that thing that's happening in Washington with those political elites, Obama now coming out and endorsing Biden. Listen, that's going to be what it's going to be. I'm asking you guys, will you have real power real power, is asking these guys, saying, listen, what the hell, Anibal? What the hell? We haven't moved forward. We're in no, see, and I'm not talking about anecdotal stuff. I'm saying right now, as a group, not how I continue to say as a team, we're losing. We can talk individually about how you or me or my children or your grandchild may have done something really great. As a team. See, now they're measuring us as a team. They're saying black people. They're not saying your child or my niece. They're saying black people are dying at disproportionate rates. Black people. See? So go back to not COVID-19, but recognize you're black. And so now being that, look at these people and say, look, you guys have been putting folks in charge of our educational institution, $1 billion budget. You guys have constantly been funding and endorsing and supporting through your political apparatus, organizations and people to sit atop of this stuff. And now when we look at it, headline after headline after headline right now, or should I say funeral after funeral after funeral, we see that those people did nothing. They didn't advance anything. Nothing meaningful. It was all subterfuge, but nothing meaningful. And what are the meaningful things? I mean, we got to figure that out, right? So because we get confused about what the meaningful things are. Well, he gave me a chicken. Well, you know, she puts on a really good senior citizen fashion show. Well, you know, they had Thanksgiving dinner for the seniors. Well, you know, I mean, they contributed to my block party, brought hot dogs and CNC canned soda. Yeah, you know, they employed a couple of dozen youth over the summertime. Those are not meaningful things. Those are things that it's like if you want an ice cream sundae, right? The ice cream is the substance. All things that you put on top are added, right? And so if there's no substance, if these other things that are more meaningful are not in place, all of the other things we see now are inconsequential. What's consequential right now is whether or not you were educated properly to be able to compete for a job, right, that might have allowed you to move out of a community that was suffering from environmental racism. The answer is no. The question is whether or not you were educated or trained enough to be able to compete for a job that would allow you to buy food that is healthier for you, that doesn't lead you down a diabetes or high blood pressure road. And the answer is no. So all of those things that were important, that through arrested development and some other psychoses you don't see as important. You deem these other things important. But now here you are. And the question is, at this crucial moment, what are you going to do? And so as they try to come up with these quick fixes, which are going to create more problems long term, they're going to create more problems long term. While they're working on these quick fixes, where are you going to be left? It's a question that I hope you guys are paying attention to and answering. But when I look at this, I say to them and to the person who sent this to me, it's business as usual for them. Because you've accepted the abuse over and over and over again. And so why shouldn't they abuse you? Why should they stop now? It's working out really well for them. It's working out quite well for them. I just, I'm just concerned. I'm concerned, deeply, deeply concerned that you got, and where you are now is your focus is simply, a lot of you, on this $1,200 check. And now one of the other things that they're talking about, because you're in such bad shape, they're talking about giving you money. I saw a headline where Ras Baraka is talking about universal basic income. And you're not even understanding why you might need that. Like, why you're in such bad shape. And somebody's got to now give you some money. Because you won't, therefore seeing that you won't be able to take care of yourself to a large extent because of whose failings? Partly yours, mainly yours. But the people who you elected or didn't get involved in an election to make sure got elected didn't take care of the most critical things in our community to make sure that we were prepared. So, listen, I'm not certain where we go from here, but it's going to be a long, hard road. And I don't know how yesterday turned out with regard to the businesses that were closed. We talked a little bit about this yesterday too. There's going to come a day of reckoning, and it's coming sooner than you think. I believe, based on everything that I'm reading, this thing is going to, and they're talking about, some places where there's a second wave already occurring. This thing is going to last for a little while longer. And how businesses are going to open, how people are going to get back to work, I'm not exactly sure. I got mixed feelings about it because I understand that some people are going to suffer, businesses are going to close, people are going to be homeless, all these things are going to happen. But God damn it, I look and say, well, what role did you play in shoring up your future to make sure that you were going to be all right? And beyond what role you played, past tense, what role are you now prepared to play to make sure that moving forward? So even if I said to you, okay, look, you screwed up in the past. You didn't involve yourself properly. You didn't hold the necessary people accountable. You didn't check to make sure that the proper policies were in place to protect you. You didn't do any of those things. And this is why you're in the condition that you're in. You know what, right now, that let's forget all of that. Let's all tighten our belts. Let's all work together. Let's all fight to make sure that moving forward, things are better. What I'm saying to you is that the majority of people who are worse off right now are not even ready to get in the fight now. They're not ready to get in the fight now. Even though they're dying, they're not ready to get in the fight. I showed you the video of those thousands or hundreds of people who were in the street partying. The level of arrested development in our community is sickening. Absolutely sickening. Somebody said to me, after yesterday's show, we continue to talk about the problem. We need to come up with solutions. I weave the solution into identifying the problem, right? So the solution is that you have to take responsibility. The solution is, you have to identify those people who are around you, who are dangerous to you, and you have to move them out of the way, and you have to press forward. You can't continue to make excuses for them. You have to understand that part of the reason that you're in the condition that you're in is because there are a lot of people around you, maybe even you, right, who have been apathetic to this entire process, who have looked for somebody else to fight a battle that you should have been fighting. right? So it's about self-reflection. It's about stepping outside your door, looking to your left, down the street at your neighbors, and to the right, and then disowning a lot of them because they're just dead leaves on a tree. You got to prune them. There's a solution. But to continue to kick it and pal around with these people, that's not the solution, that's the problem. Listen, I'm gonna take this real quick break, and when I come back, I'm gonna talk about this whole testing thing, because I'm watching it, and our biggest issue with dealing with this thing is testing. And I'm gonna break down to you exactly what's going on at your local level and at your state level around testing. We'll be right back.
Do you have loss prevention or safety concerns? Black Belt Security and Investigations has armed and unarmed guards that can protect what is important to you. For security you can count on, visit www.bbsillc.com or call 1-800-493-1859 today.
So let me break down this testing thing for you guys so you know what's going on with your elected officials. If you listen to Andrew Cuomo yesterday, he broke down exactly what has been going on. And I, working with some of my business partners, we were right in the middle of this. So I think I mentioned to you all that in my previous life, I worked in corporate America, and I did a lot of work overseas with factories in India, factories in China. And so I have relationships with a lot of those people. And so when this COVID-19 thing really broke out and folks were saying that they couldn't get PPEs, and this is important for you guys to share or at least listen to closely so that you understand what's going on. So as this thing broke out, my phone rang and said, "Hey, Eric, listen, it was an associate of mine who was actually over in China working with these factories. And he said, Eric, listen, I can get you masks." He said, "We're having a big problem penetrating politics over in the U.S., but I can get you masks if you have contacts within the political sphere." And so I said to him, "Well, how many masks can you get, and what's the cost of the masks?" And while he was talking to me, Cuomo was actually on, this was a few weeks ago now. Cuomo was actually on television, and he was talking about PPEs and not being able to get them, and people were price gouging, and they were charging $8, $9 a mask. And so my guy said, "Hey, Eric, I can get the masks for you." And I think back then they were like $230 or $235 a mask. So I'm watching Cuomo, and I'm looking at Murphy, Governor Murphy, again saying that these hospitals were deprived of the PPEs, they couldn't get masks, the workers were putting themselves at risk, first responders. And so I got all of the information from my guy over in China, and I contacted all the folks that I know. And like I said to you guys, I've been in the political circle for a while, and so I've got some phone numbers in my phone. And so I called them, or left messages for them, left text messages for them. For those who I had emails for, I shot out more than a dozen emails to people saying that I had access to PPEs by the millions. They actually told me that they had 5 million that they could have shipped within a week, and we could have had them here. Again, I believe the price was $230 a mask, and all they required was a purchase order. They didn't even require cash because it was going to be paid for by government agencies. So they required a purchase order. And for you guys who don't know, a purchase order just serves as a contract that says, if what I'm requesting you send, and it meets all of the criteria that's in the in the purchase order, then we will pay this amount of money. And so the factories, Naval told me that the factory said, we'll just take purchase order. So I contacted them and I said, look, all I need is a purchase order from you guys. No response back from any of them. None. Well, that's not true. I got one response back, and that response came from Tony Voss, Mayor Tony Voss in Irvington. Out of all of the mayors, out of all of the governors, out of all of the assembly people, state senators, Congress people, your elected officials who I have their information in my phone, contacted them. I got one phone call back from Tony Voss who said, listen, we'll purchase 10,000, but we want to do 3 purchase orders. So we'll get 10,000 and we'll do another 10,000, we'll do another 10,000. This is all a true story, guys. And I contemplated telling you, but I'm telling you because I want you to understand how low on the totem pole you really are and how a lot of them are operating for self-interest, your government. And so with Tony Voss, Mayor Tony Voss in Irvington, he sent me a purchase order. I got the purchase order, came through an email to me. I sent the 10,000 unit purchase order over to China. And the next day, I think, again, I believe it was for $230 per mask. I got a call back the next day or 2 days later saying, Eric, I can't deliver these 10,000. And I said, why? And he said, well, firstly, the price had gone up from $230 to $265 overnight per mask. And he said, I can't get the 10,000 printed because countries are printing them, or are not printed, manufactured. I can't get them manufactured because countries are getting, bidding for millions of masks. He said, so me going in with a purchase order for 10,000 won't get me to the table. He said, because people are negotiating for millions. He said, can you get an order of 1 million? He said, if you can get an order for 1 million, he said, I can elbow my way into the factory and I can get them to manufacture 1 million. But it's got to be at $265 now. That's the going rate. So I sent an email back out to Mayor Voss and his purchasing agent, and I said, look, 1 million masks I need to get. So if we can get in touch with the county executive and some other people, and maybe you towns collectively, the 22 or 23 towns in Essex County, can collectively purchase the masks, right? N95 masks. They'll be here in 5 days. You guys can get 1 million masks. No return phone calls. 0 return phone calls. Then a couple days later, I got another call from my boots on the ground in China saying that the price of the mask had gone up again. And I believe at that point they were $4 and change. But every day I'm watching Governor Murphy, I'm watching Governor Cuomo, I'm watching Mayor de Blasio, I'm watching your local mayors all talk about the shortage of PPEs. But they have in their inbox a message from me that they can get them. Now, even if they believed, and this is why I'm telling you the purchase order, even if they believed that there were some shenanigans going on, there was no payment required, just a purchase order that said we promise to pay if you deliver what you say you're going to deliver. So I say my guys in China have N95 masks. They NOSHA certified. They're FDA certified. But you know what? I know you want to see the freight come in and you want to see the actual pallets. So just issue the purchase order, which will trigger the manufacturing and the shipping. When they get here, you guys can inspect them. Once you inspect them and verify that they are what you said you wanted to purchase, then you release the funds. But what I believe happened, well, let me finish with the story. So nothing, no phone calls, no nothing. But every day, still, we have no PPEs. Nurses, you see them on television crying because they're putting themselves at risk. having to wash out their masks, all these things. And I'm watching this stuff, guys. I was going to talk about this last week, but but I'm watching it, and I'm texting them, and I'm calling them, and now I'm not even getting nothing. My calls are going to voicemail, my texts are not being responded to, nothing's happening. But they're still telling you all that they're not getting PPEs. And the reason I'm telling you this story is this. Call them and ask them, firstly, if you don't believe me, call them and ask them, is it true that I contacted them? And then you tell me what their response is, and then I'll show you the receipts from my phone. I'll start posting the text messages. And I'll post also the correspondence back and forth that I was having with my guys in China. So we get past all of this, no responses, they're still doing that. We get to last week, I think it is, and I connected with some folks in California who now had masks shipped. They were now in California. I said, can you send me all of the documentation about what came in on the freight? They sent it all to me. To your governors, your mayors, all of your other decision makers. I forwarded this information. I said, hey, look, they're in California. Now, with the factory, because full disclosure, I want to kind of lay this out for you. I'm sorry if it's boring, but it's important for you to know what's going on. So the guys in China, my partners there, wanted to offer me a broker's fee. And their broker's fee, they wanted me to add on top of the $2.30 that they were charging per mask. So they wanted to give me a per mask broker's fee. And I said, no. I said, you got to charge the $2.30 because I'm not going to, we're not going to charge more than what you charge. You have to give me a broker's fee out of your $2.30. Right? That's, I got to make a living. But for doing actual work, right? Finding the client, making sure stuff gets shipped, making sure it's accurate, making sure all those things. They agreed to that. They agreed that they weren't going to add anything on. Then the same thing with the folks in California. Decided they weren't going to add anything on. I've got all kinds of emails from them too. I made more phone calls out to the governor's office in New York, governor's office in New Jersey, congressional leaders, right? To Donald Payne, to Mickey Sherrill, to others. I've made to state senators, U.S. senators, Cory Booker, to Menendez. No responses from any of them. Now, these are all people who have either been on the show before, their contact people have contacted me about coming on the show, so I know how to get in touch with them. So when I saw yesterday, Governor Cuomo talking about PPE still, talking about, he was talking about ventilators now. And in his conversation about ventilators, but it's no different with the masks. That what these factories are doing is they're in the business of making money. And so even if I had 1 million, so my one guy over there, plus the guys who are over there from all of these other countries, it's like the wild, wild west in China right now. Because that's where most of everything is being manufactured. And they know people need it. And so, it's supply and demand. So you could go there ostensibly with a purchase order for 1 million masks and a negotiated price for $2.65 or $3 and whatever, or $4.50. And they're manufacturing your 1 million masks based on your purchase order. But because it's China and it's the wild, wild west, if Italy or France, a representative from there comes over to that same factory where they're manufacturing your 1 million masks for $4.50, let's say, and they say, I'm going to give you $10 a mask if you give me those masks that you just printed, what do you think China's going to do? That factory sells your 1 million masks, and then they'll call you up and tell you, hey, listen, and sometimes they may be courteous enough to tell you, hey, listen, I know I agreed to manufacture these 1 million masks for you for $4.50 a mask, but hold on, Diane, let me get you on. So I know they say I agreed to manufacture these masks for you, these million masks for $4.50 a mask. But you know what? Somebody just walked in the door and they're gonna give me $10 a mask. So instead of me making $4.5 million from you, I can make $10 million from them. Do you want to pay 11? Right? And so that's what goes on. So when you hear Cuomo say on national television, hey, listen, it's the Wild Wild West. It's a bidding war. You've got governors from all the states bidding against each other for these PPEs, for these ventilators, for all of these things. He's not lying. But not only are they bidding against each other, they're bidding against the rest of the world. The rest of the world. And so I want you to understand. So in the middle of all of that, I'm calling them, speaking to them, saying, look, you know, whatever's going on is going on there, but I have secured some. And you don't have to believe me, right? Just sign a purchase order. No money out. Just a purchase order. And if they don't come, they don't come. No harm, no foul, right? But the purchase order. And they couldn't get it done. Right? So I have successfully gotten some to some private industry people. But your government, I can personally tell you that they failed you. Personally. Now, here's the other piece, and Diana, and I'll ask you to weigh in. I've been in contact, and I sent this out to them too. In fact, I'm going to read the text message that I sent out. I'm not going to tell you who I sent it to, but it went to the governors, it went to the mayors, went to the same people, right? And the message says, it says COVID-19, and this message was sent on Saturday because I got the information from my people. It says COVID-19 rapid test kits. So again, this was on Saturday. I said, hey, blank, rapid test kits are in demand and more than 700,000 have already been ordered. And my understanding is that out of that 700,000, more than 100,000 units are slated for various hotspots. Of the next 12,000 units being manufactured by Abbott Laboratories, and you guys can go and Google Abbott Laboratories, right? So I said, my business partners and I have acquired 600 units. These are those rapid test kits. So you're going to hear them talk about this on the news now, these rapid test kits, where they could test you within 5 to 15 minutes. These are due to arrive within the next 10 days. So we have 600, they're due to arrive in the next 6 days. So we literally had to scramble to get 600 out of all of the hundreds of thousands that are being ordered and manufactured. It says these specific units are rapid kits which provide results in 15 minutes or less and have an accuracy rate of blah, 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 on and on and on. And I said, if you guys are interested, please let me know. Here are the bona fides of the company. I sent them all of the information, right? And I said, if you're in need and want to discuss purchasing them, you got to get in touch with me because they're going quickly. I got no response back from any of them. Now, I can tell you this. I've got family members in law enforcement. I got family members on the front line as nurses and doctors fighting against this stuff. And whenever they have any of the symptoms, right, they may not have COVID-19, but they may have some symptoms, they're asked to self-quarantine for 14 days. So if they're a police officer or a firefighter, they're taken off the battlefield for 14 days until they're cleared to not have had COVID-19. Now, what I'm saying in my head is this, when I got this on Saturday, imagine if, and I had a nephew who was suffering allergy symptoms, but they didn't know. So they told him to self-quarantine for 14 days. So they took him off the police for 14 days. But imagine if he could have taken this test and got the results back in 5 to 10 minutes. Then they wouldn't have had to take him off the police force for 14 days. Think about the 5,000 police officers who called out sick in New York. If they had the test, right, they wouldn't have to self-quarantine if they didn't have the virus, right? And you'd be able to find out in 5 to 10 minutes. Think about the efficiency of this. But no phone calls back. No phone calls, not one. But right now, if you look at the news, they're talking about how we're going to acquire these rapid test kits. How are we going to do more testing? Testing is critical. So you have them locking down cities. You have them locking it all down. All because they really can't test and they really can't protect. But when they had the opportunity to, and they still do, and I'm not saying this for self-promotion, right? I get paid for the work that I do, but this is beyond that. This is beyond Eric getting paid. This is about you guys knowing that opportunities exist, but because your government lacks the acumen to act, you guys don't get the benefit. Hey, Diane, what's up?
Good morning. How are you?
Diane, I mean, look, I think that it is important. I'm upset. You asked me a question. I'm going to give you an answer. I'm upset.
Okay. Well, again, you're upset with people that you assume are willing to do business with you because you assume you have a product that they should want. And many times what happens, and with any business deals, whether it's government, whether it's something that has to do with a health crisis or not, people do business with people they like. And that's just the bottom line. And people in the public will suffer because of it, and sometimes they won't suffer. And that is what it is. So to go on and say whether or not you have services or products to provide, and they don't call you and they talk about how we need these services is just a part of how government and how people actually interact with other business people. And it's not just you. This is how they interact typically across all government agencies when it comes to giving out bids and doing RFPs and stuff like that.
Oh,
now
I didn't want to make
starting
it.
To
listen,
see.
I'm
Yes.
not trying to
now
make it. Now
people have the opportunity to see it. This is how business acts, and this is why you get what you get.
Right.
It's because they do business with only people they like, not doing business that's smart business.
Well, that's the next point I was going to. So, look, guys, no woe is me. It wasn't about me having you guys, having anybody feel like Eric is salty about them not doing business. It's not about that. I could care less, right? I could care less. What it is about is how they do business in general. And this is what I've realized, Diane, is I can't say all of them, but some of them, because I've done some digging. You know what the delay is? Folks with
delay is funding. Funding.
Well, no. Delay is not funding. Here's what the delay is in some cases. You have folks within these different administrations trying to figure out how to make money. Right? So here, I'm gonna give it to you. They could go with Joe Schmo, who calls them and says, hey, I'm a broker, right? Because everything is going through brokers. If you listen to Cuomo yesterday, he said it's all going through brokers now. With the ventilators, with everything, it's all going through brokers. So what people within these governments are trying to do is slice off a piece of a broker's fee for themselves. Do you understand what I'm saying to you, Diane? And so it's creating a delay in the process because the broker says, I don't have to do business with you. Right? I got something you need. You don't have me over a barrel.
Exactly. Well, that's how, honestly, if he was being honest, all business goes through brokers. Nobody is a direct buyer. Very few people directly buy from the manufacturer.
Right. But
everybody uses a broker.
But in most cases,
and every broker gets a fee.
Right. But in most cases in government, right? Unfortunately, and we see them going to jail all the time doing perp walks, you have the purchasing people somewhere along that chain who's either making the decision to use this company or whatever. They're getting some sort of a kickback. They're benefiting somehow, either directly or indirectly, right? They got their family member associated, or they're associated, or an LLC they created is now a go-through, right? All of these different things are set up for them to be able to benefit, right? That's what happens. We all know it. And so one of the delays here is that it's not like a Xerox machine or paper where government has the upper hand and can decide to use this vendor or that vendor, or this broker or that broker. You're talking about things that are in rare supply, and the broker has the upper hand, right? It's a seller's market right now, not a buyer's market. And so the way that corrupt government is set up to work is they're always the buyer with the big pockets, right? And they're able to bend the broker over and take advantage of him or her. But in this case, they can't do it. And the delay is they don't want to spend the money until they can see that they can profit from it personally. And so they're willing to sacrifice weeks of you getting what you need to be protected in order for them to try to figure out how to line their pockets. So that was the whole story. So not so much about me, but because I'm in the middle of it, I can tell you the story. Because I'm having conversations with folks over in China, I can tell you the story.
So then, what do you suggest is the workaround then?
Well, the workaround,
so we know what
Diane,
the problem is. What's the workaround?
Well, so right. So I always weave the solution, and the solution is the same, right? So it's to inform people, engage them, and then empower them. So now that you know, right, the solution is for you to do something, right?
Well, what is the solution?
I'm sorry?
I said, what's the solution? To do what? Do something. What is something to do?
Okay. So now, I'm gonna follow you down this rabbit hole, but the scary part is that you even believe that I have to lead people like that. So here's the solution, guys. Call your representatives, right, or those who are supposed to represent you, and ask them, is what I'm saying true? Right? And like I said, and then ask them to proof up, and then I'll proof up. And then beyond that, once you now have that truthful information, the solution to save your life is to get rid of them, because now you understand that they don't have your best interests at heart. But the fact that I would even have to go down that road and say to you, hey, listen, I just laid out for you in the last 20 minutes how these people are operating against your interests, and then you say, what's the solution? The solution is clear. Get rid of the people who are operating against.
Always has to be a call to action, Eric. When you do something, there has to be a call to action, and people need it every single time.
I'm not disagreeing that there needs to be a call to action, but it's kind of like if somebody touches a stove and you start to burn your hand, and you leave your hand there, and you say, "Well, I'm burning my hand. What's the solution?" I'm looking at you, going, "Well, your reflex isn't to move your hand off the stove, so your reflex isn't."
It depends on if you know that your hand is burning, or if you're just accustomed to the burn.
Oh no, and I agree with that too. But what I'm saying is this: right now, and so I started the show by saying, people, if you don't realize, because you're front and center now, you're front and center in the whole story about COVID-19. And so if you don't understand that your house is on fire, if you don't understand that your hand is burning now, then I don't know that there's ever a time that I can convince you of it. If you can't look right now and realize the fact that you're sitting there waiting for somebody to pass a bill that is going to keep you from having to pay your rent because you don't have money to pay your rent. The fact that you've got butterflies or knots in your stomach trying to figure out how you're going to take care of other expenses, and right? The fact that you literally are in this space right now. Your hand is burning. It's on the stove and it's burning. You're living it right now. None of this is theory. It might have been theory 5 weeks ago or 7 weeks ago, but it's no longer theory. You got no food. You may not have a place to live. You got no money. You're sitting there waiting, reading, asking people, when is that $1,200 check going to come? That's not going to do much of anything. But you're waiting for it. Your hand is burned. The house is on fire. And you know what? And the crazy part of it is, I tell you, all we have to do, Diane, is keep going back and listening to what Dr. King said over and over and over again. He said, I fear that I have led my people into a burning building. And it's burning. Poor people, burning. Black people, burning. It's an inferno right now. It's an inferno. They say, what's the solution? Get out of the building.
Well, maybe they're happy in the building they're in. Maybe that's why they're still there.
Well, you know what, Diane?
This is what we're going to deal with, and we'll get past this, and we'll be fine.
Some may be, right? Some may be.
So,
I mean, I showed the video yesterday of the hundreds of people who are out in the street partying, and so yeah, you know, they may very well be.
Yeah, so you can't help people who don't want to be helped. We already figured that out. Did you see that in Wisconsin that they did a turnover in the voting out there, and they got in a Democratic person, even though they were trying to, shut down the elections in Wisconsin?
Well, that's big news.
That is big news. And what I thought was interesting is they stated they had 300,000 registered voters out there, and usually they have 180 different polling places, and they reduced it down to 5. So you're talking about social distancing, but instead of opening up additional polling sites, you reduce it down to 5. So all of these people, not necessarily that 300,000 came out to vote, but the people that did come out to vote had 5 locations. Does that make any sense? So when you talk about the government failing you, yeah, they're failing in many different ways. That there's a lot of different fires going on that they can't put out. It's like they create their own fires.
Well, they were trying to disenfranchise folks, right? Obviously.
Yeah, well,
and it didn't work. People came out and and voted in. So I wonder if that's going to play big in the presidential election, right? Wisconsin is the state that Donald Trump would have to win.
Yeah, Wisconsin was actually what they said one of those sensitive states where Donald Trump actually won in 2016 with fewer than 30,000 votes. So it's actually one of those pivotal states. So it's going to be interesting to watch as we start to move forward, because primaries are still happening. Some, of course, have been moved back to June. But we'll see. But Wisconsin also had an issue where they were talking about trying to eliminate over, I believe it was like 200,000 people off the voter registration that they fought against too. So, they've had a lot of stuff going on out there in Wisconsin.
Well,
and one article I read, they were talking about, this voter suppression now has a white face on it, trying to make it seem because they moved it consolidated down to 5 polling sites. And now white people understand what it means for black people to be forced not to be able to, or not forced, or try to prevent them from voting in the elections. And what they actually said is that thousands of white voters now have a sense of what it's like to be a black person during Jim Crow era. These voters risk their physical safety, their jobs, even their lives just to vote. I don't think that's the comparison, though, but okay.
Yeah, it says, John Blake says, this is an article out of CNN, the one that you're referencing, voter suppression now has a white face in Wisconsin. Voting rights advocates have been howling in dismay since a Supreme Court decision led to thousands of Wisconsin voters going to polling stations last week during the pandemic. But they might eventually thank the High Court for inadvertently performing an act of public service. Thousands of white voters now have a sense of what it was like to vote as a black person during the... You know what? I mean, firstly, I'm insulted by that, right?
Exactly.
I'm insulted by that because it distills this down to just that one moment, right? It doesn't talk about the threats, the beatings, doesn't talk about the hoses, the dogs that were unleashed on us, right? Doesn't talk about any of that, right? The fact that they were simply inconveniencing a line now puts them on par with all the suffering that black folks had to deal with during the Jim Crow era. I think that the level of insensitivity in that statement. But let me read first.
It's insensitive.
Yeah.
But go down further to the bottom because they do address that again.
Okay, it says, that harrowing experience was reserved for blacks who attempted to vote in the Deep South and elsewhere during segregation. No one should be forced to choose between their right to vote and their right to stay healthy, President Obama said on a tweet last week. You want me to go down further? This unintended crash course in Jim Crow may not be what most people focus on in Wisconsin. Further down?
Under the caption where it says, "Only when whites suffer does America act."
All right, I can't find it, but we'll go to try to find it. But look, the fact of the matter is that the corporation white supremacy, those who are in charge, those politically, that political elite crowd will do whatever it takes and harm whomever they need to maintain power, right? And so if some innocent white folk happen to get in the line of fire as they're trying to hold on to power, then that's just the collateral damage that had to happen. You know what I mean? And so the fact is, if it has been happening, right, and it will continue to happen because they are focused on power. That is it. That's it. So every move that they make, every initiative that they set forward is about achieving power and holding on to power. So poor white folk. Hey, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to? What do you want? You know what I'm saying, Diane? Black folk are dying.
Woe is me. Woe is me.
Yeah, woe is me. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Black folk are dying because we have been so marginalized for decades. Somebody said to me yesterday, and I think I reposted. They said our underlying condition is that we're black.
Did you read the article that I sent you regarding from the Guardian?
Which
that
one?
Talked about the pollution hotspots, the homes of people of color hit hardest by the coronavirus in the U.S.
Well, but Diane, look. So if we talk about Elizabeth, let's just say New Jersey, right? So New Jersey, right? We talk about Elizabeth. We talk about that ride up and down a turnpike where you smell that awful smell that isn't healthy for people, right? You talk about all of the environmental racism that takes place just here, that people are living around, and nobody fighting for it. Look, I was out there on the front line with the Urban League fighting against that switching station, which I'm telling you, at some point is going to come back to haunt people. You build a 6-acre switching station right in the heart of a residential neighborhood, right? You create an immediate hardship. Am I right, Diane? For all those homeowners.
Yep.
For all those homeowners who literally live right across the street. As soon as they started building that, what happened to the property values of those homes?
Dropped.
They plummeted, right? And I'll tell you, you've got Joe McCullum, right, who praised the work of PSE&G, right? He got some money for some basketball courts or something. You got Raz Baraka, who was not in the fight, because when I was pushing and fighting with the Urban League, Raz was nowhere around. None of those folks down in City Hall were anywhere around fighting. Well, that's not true, but most of them weren't fighting, including the mayor. And so, and at that point, he wasn't. None of them were fighting. After it became clear that PSE&G was going to win, then you had folks come to the table to carve out pieces of money. But I'm telling you, you have a 6-acre. So we're having this conversation about these underlying conditions, and this is what I'm saying, Diane. This woe is me about black people. Like, oh my God, we got to look into why we have these underlying conditions. We gotta look at how black folks are so marginalized all this time. And I'm saying, wait a minute, you got this switching station right there.
So you know what's crazy about that switching station? That location used to be owned by Provision of Promise Churches.
That's right.
Provision of Promise Churches was given that property for a really, really cheap amount under Sharp James as the mayor. They then turned around and sold it to PSNG for millions of dollars. Millions of dollars.
And who said anything?
And they sold out their community.
And who said anything?
They too, more black people.
But beyond that, who said anything? Where was where was Cory Booker? Where was, because I can tell you, I knocked on doors until my knuckles were bleeding almost, Diane, trying to get people in the community to come out and to push back against the switching station. There were no, I think maybe Senator Rice was against it. And maybe then, you know what? Senator Rice was against it. Former Councilman Ron C. Rice was against it. My brother Darren, who was the councilman of the Central Ward at the time, was against it. That was it. Nobody else. And this is what I'm saying. So all of these people who had platforms, who were in political positions to be able to be a voice for you and stand up for you and fight for you, none of them. And so when we talk about these underlying conditions, when you talk about that article in The Guardian, Diane, I mean, I'm looking at it right in our own neighborhood. Right there. And it's going to come back. I'm telling you. It's going to come back to haunt us.
Yep. So, you know that the governors, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and I want to say Delaware as well, are working together and have formed this pact together on how they want to try and work together to reopen businesses. One, to work together because we're all neighboring states, I think is a fabulous idea. Two, how and which businesses that they're going to decide to open up is going to be interesting to watch, especially on testing. Because are you going to test people, and how often will you test them? Because just because you got a test today and shows you negative today doesn't mean tomorrow you don't get infected by somebody else that you encounter.
Right.
So how is that going to work?
Right.
That's going to be interesting. Or are they going to result with reopening stores? Are there going to be some mandates that they're going to put in place with this regarding wearing masks, wearing gloves, or simply no contact if you don't have to? Like for my business, you don't have to come into office, saying that there should not be a storefront for certain type of businesses. It should be online business or mobile business, however you want to do it. They haven't really worked that out, which is interesting to see how they're possibly going to come about with this pact that they're going to do.
Right. So, and the title of today's show, so I'm trying to come up with one for each show, is in the age of COVID-19, who has the power, the president or the governors? Because the president is saying, I want to open everything up. Well, that's not what he's saying. He's saying, I want to get everything open eventually, right? Then Fauci is saying that it's going to be a rollout based on the level of severity of cases in each particular state, right? Like you may have some states that, you know, the threat is low, that they're looking and saying we can open up in these ways, and other states where the threat is high, like New York, the epicenter, right? It's going to have a different strategy for opening businesses than, say, Oregon or Idaho, right? But the issue that I looked at in this thing is there is a concern about what's the criteria for the businesses. There is a concern about the testing. There is a concern, and there should be, about a second wave of this thing and what they're doing to prevent it as they're trying to reopen the economy. And I gotta say it, as minority business owners, black business owners, small businesses, what considerations are being made for you, right? Because the people who are lobbying for this are big businesses, right? And so they're trying to figure out how to get those businesses open. The question is, how are you going to benefit from this? And so who's at the table lobbying for you? But beyond that, Diane, the question that I ask is this: when you now, because we look in all of this, and there's an overlay to all of this, and the overlay to every single move that's being made right now are these elections that are coming up, right? So the idea of opening up the government by governors who believe that when the time comes, they're going to be held responsible for the economies of their individual states. They're looking and saying, well, how do I put myself in the best light? You've got the president of the United States who's saying, I touted the U.S. economy as being the best economy ever, and that's what I was going to run on. I want to get in front of this, and I want to be the one who's opening it up and showing an upward trajectory with respect to the economy. And then you have, again, the governors who are saying, we're not going to give you that credit. We want to take the credit because at the end of the day, it is ours. And so that's where the real battle is going to come in. And I think anyway, 1 second caller, is that by the governors creating the pact that you just talked about, Diane, what they've done is they've taken the onus away from Donald Trump and the pressure and the responsibility to get this economy going. So he say, look, I wanted it, but these governors didn't.
Mm-hmm. Well, in all honesty, the way government works is the federal government sets rules and stuff in place. It's up to each individual state to decide if they're going to follow or amend rules as according to the federal government. Sure. So it is governors' call in each state to decide whether business is completely shut down, if they're going to follow along, or if they're not, because the president didn't shut down anything. He never said we're shutting down businesses or anywhere, and this is why you had governors from Florida and Georgia who were behind and said we're not doing this, and then said we are doing this, and then said, well, we were going to reconsider this. And you had governors out in California saying this is what's happening, and mayors inside of San Francisco saying this is why we've been able to contain it, is because we shut down immediately. So everybody has a different viewpoint on what they think based on their demographics and population of their city and state. So Trump really doesn't have a claim for this. So either way, the only thing that he can take the fall for, and he's going to take the fall for, is having information that he did not distribute out to everybody sooner than later. And that's where he needs to fall on that sword. And that's it. But the opening and closing of the state, that literally is up to the governors. You want to take the call?
Yep, caller, go.
Hey, good morning, guys. Before I get started, I want to thank you for yesterday, your offer to come on the show, via Skype or whatever, and I really appreciate the offer, but I'm out here on the road.
Okay.
But the thing that I found so disturbing about yesterday's show leads into what you're talking about now, and that people are willing to give up certain rights to get back to normal or continue on as business as usual. And if you listen to him carefully, he used the word, he has total authority. And that those two words and that thinking, that mindset is, when you add the isms onto the word, is authoritarianism and totalitarianism. And both lead to dictatorship. And he's saying that he has total power. I don't know where all these states' right folks are. They usually would jump up and grab their guns when they heard. If any other president would have said that, they would have jumped up and said, "Oh no, we have state rights, and you're taking my right away to do this, and you're taking my right away to do that." They're quiet as church mouth, and this is the same way Hitler did and got people to believe in his way of genocide. That when I get in power, I'm going to give you jobs, and I'm going to do this, and they fell right in line. And everything Hitler did was legal. So he's saying that he has total authority and it's legal to do whatever the hell he want to do because he's the president.
Right.
Not that he's Donald Trump, but he's the president. So if you read it, you got to go into the Constitution, but that's another arguments
but I think one of
another
the
day.
big challenges, right? So I don't think that we have to, in order for Donald Trump to really move in a way that Hitler or any of the other dictators did, is he'd have to have control of the military, right? Which he doesn't in that way. So that's not going to happen. He can believe what he wants to believe. Here's the question that I want to have regarding what I think is a superior chess move, right? When you overlay the election that's coming up. When you do a SWOT analysis, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats of these elections. The threat that Donald Trump has is the economy, right? The economy, because that's what he was, where was it? It's the economy, stupid, right? So the economy.
Right.
So by him saying openly, look, I want to be the shot caller, right? That's what he said yesterday. He said, as a president, I call the shots. He said, I want to be the shot caller. I want to get this thing back on the tracks. Not knowing full well about states' rights and the power of the governors. But him coming and saying, I want to do this, and then have them now do exactly what was predicted, that they were going to come and push back. So now he has a foil, right? To say, well, I want to do these things. And now watch these governors, and the governors, if they succeed in opening things up and the economy comes back, right, to some extent where he could stand up and say, look at the economy again, and he wins. If the governors fail at their attempt, then he says, look, I wanted to do it this way, but they stepped in. So I'm saying, has he created a win-win situation for himself right now?
Yeah, but I beg to differ that he is the commander-in-chief, and Hitler came to power because he caused their version of Congress to lose power. And with this impeachment and the way they did that is they effectively, in my opinion, I'm no constitutional scholar, but he made them feckless in a sense. And we have to keep an eye on this, and you're absolutely right. You got to read the 10th Amendment when it comes to the people's power, which is us, the states and all of that. But that's another story for another day. But also with the environment that you guys are talking about, there's another concern that because all of these businesses are not open and the amount of trash is not being accumulated, and the rodents and the rats are eat each other and causing another problem. We have to keep an eye on this situation. If you got some, if you have invaded around your property, I would stop.
Hey, Mike. Did you ever play that? Yeah. Did you ever play that video game SimCity?
No.
There was a video game that was out called SimCity, and you could, if you signed on, you were signing on to be the mayor of a city, right? And you had a budget, and it would bring up all of these essential services: fire department, police department, hospitals, all these things, and all these other different services, right? And your job was to run the city. And you understood that, or you would learn that if you pulled money, so you would be faced with a deficit. Then you'd have to figure out how to make that deficit up. You'd pull money from here to do this. You try to create this stream of revenue. You try to do these things. I remember playing it as a kid or as a younger person. And I would dare say that most elected officials, local elected officials, would fail at the game. Because what they don't understand is that when they pull from here, it affects this thing over here, right? And so I was on the phone this morning before I got on the show with a pest control person, and I asked him. I said, "How's it going?" He said, "Eric," he said, "Listen, man," he said, "they got to pick up this garbage." He said they got to pick it up, and so you're creating another issue. Where's the garbage going to go? Where's it gonna go?
Yeah.
It's like a dam, right? If you build a dam here, the water's gonna be rerouted somewhere. It's not gonna just dissipate.
Yeah. No. Yeah. You're right. You know, we have created. I mean, infrastructure is failing at every point in this country, and people better pay close attention because they'll spend money on the incinerator or whatever you call it, and knowing that it's going to cause all of these problems, but they won't. And they'll just say, "Oh, it's going to create a job," but you know what I mean? Yeah, but the job it's going to create is going to cause a light. So I totally understand what you're saying, and there has to be a balance. This is where the justice is going to come in. Our thinking is totally on the money that's going to be made and the economy and all of this other stuff. We're not looking at the whole thing in the balanced way. That's all I want to make sure that people are doing here, because, man, we in deep water. We in deep water because every move they make it creates another problem.
So here's another move while I got you on the phone, and Diane, you too. There's an article, and we talked a little bit about drones yesterday. We talked about civil liberties, right? In Elizabeth, they're unleashing drones, right? For social distancing and for community awareness. And there are people who are pushing back, saying that in this in this chaos, right, of fear, what they're calling fear mongering in the age of COVID-19, that folks are now just laying down their civil liberties and allowing, without much pushback, for this agency, for the law enforcement folks, to now have these drones that could, at some point peek into your backyard, right? Invade your privacy.
So do you think that this is the first time they've used drones before in many other cities? In fact, in Newark, they have, the shot stopper or something they call it, that lets them know whenever somebody fires a gun. They've had police surveillance cameras in certain areas. They've had them on Lyons Avenue, Maple Avenue. So do you think this is going to be this is the first time of people losing their privacy?
Well, I'm not taking a side yet. I'm not coming down on one side or the other yet. I will before the end of the show. But a police camera, a stationary camera, is different than a drone.
Yeah. No, I'm a full disclosure. I'm a drone enthusiast, and I had my drone I've been messing around with it for a long time, but I finally invested in a good, decent one like 4 or 5 years ago. So I've been flying my drone, and I've had these types of conversations with government in Irvington regarding, and they weren't very, very receptive to it, and they're not, for whatever reason, I'm not going to get into that, but drones it's just like every technology. It has its good and its bad. It has, and when I first got it, I was over in Starrett City, close to the airport over there, and I flew it up, and man, it just started acting crazy and came back down. But I was in such close proximity to Kennedy Airport that jokers started coming from everywhere, and I learned a valuable lesson. You just can't take it off. You can't take off in any environment, and I can fly. I've gotten good enough to maneuver it where I wanted to go, but if people wanted to use it in a negative way, it can. But it has its useful purposes. It has its useful purpose. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's everything. There's always going to be technology that you're going to use for good, and there's always going to be your hackers that are going to use it just for the opposite. And I think what happens with a lot of technology is we're always behind the curve with the technology instead of being in front of it and already thinking about the precautions and setting up boundaries and what's allowed and what is not allowed. We wait until we get to those boundaries, people are violated, and just say, oh, no, we can't do that. And we should be reactive to everything.
Right. Well, technology is, right now, people better take a good look at technology and get in where they can fit in, because they get ready to use this even with the trucking industry, where the roads are now, with autonomous trucking and all of this other stuff, and they get ready to roll this stuff out in full force, because everywhere you look now, because of what is happening with the virus and so forth and so on, it's hard to find employees. So they're going to, wherever they can fit in a piece of technology to replace a human, they're going to do it. But you have to, we have to retool ourselves to be prepared. Don't get caught off guard and say, oh, why did nobody tell you? Eric been telling you for the last, I don't know, as long as I've been listening to the show, you've been having these conversations. So, but no, it's, and I try to tell guys, look, man, we got to learn how to retool ourselves with this trucking thing. When they see it, we appreciate you now, but down the road, it's going to be something different. But getting back to the drone thing, they're already, the towns that have invested in them are going to use it. The towns that find themselves in a need to get up on speed to it, they're going to have to reach out to people and be like, look, what's the ins and outs of this thing?
And there's companies out there that do nothing but drone security right now. And they've been in business to do it for government and for private companies. They work with real estate because they do those aerial pictures and stuff. They work in the entertainment business. They do a lot of stuff with drones. So like anything else, we still have to be ahead of it when it comes to the laws and regulations on how it can be used and how it can't be used.
But again, doesn't it come down to, so for me, I think that the technology is there, and I think as opposed to having a police, so in this particular instance, right, where you have this infectious disease, instead of having police officers, much like, I don't know if you saw the video that I posted where hundreds of those folks were in that community, and then you had those couple of police officers with masks trying to clear these people from having their party. Well, once those police officers have to go in that crowd, they're putting their lives at risk, right? And so to be able to have a drone that can fly over that crowd with a public service announcement asking them to, or telling them to disperse, I think it keeps the police officers safe, and the drone is able to cover a greater distance than the officer himself or herself.
Right. But not even just messages. They could be dropping water bombs on them to tell them, disperse.
Wait a minute, Diane.
They did that. They did that. There's a video out there with the Jewish community. There was a funeral or a wedding or something, and they were congregating, and they used water hoses on them. I mean, that video is out there, and people, that was lawful, blah blah blah. No, that's social disorder. And they need to, you know what I mean, distance themselves. But no, it's no.
But here's the question that I have, right? The question I was going to make, or a statement I was going to make, is for the people who are concerned, because the technology is here, right? And the technology is going to advance for the good of the many, right? And so if you are concerned about the laws, the legislation around the use of this technology, then it is imperative that you get involved in politics to ensure that the candidates who are running, who understand your civil liberty issues, are that they get in office. Because if you, how do you, so you want to sit and complain about the fact that, oh God, they're using these drones and they may use them for this and they may use them for that and there's no law against it. Well, then you need to be working with your legislators or your candidates or whomever to make sure that the people who are in office are looking out for your best interests.
You know what I've learned, Eric, being in politics and talking to people and sitting in the rooms with people trying to initiate new ideas. I'm not going to talk about the specific town mayor that I sat with in Union County, and we were talking about cannabis and how closed-minded they were about even hearing the conversation. It's very frustrating to deal with people like that. So when you're looking for candidates and you're trying to put up a candidate yourself, you need to be willing to talk to people who are open-minded to even hear a conversation. They don't have to agree with everything you say, but they need to be willing enough to hear the conversation and understand your point of view, even if it does not reflect the same as what your point of view may be. Because that's where we have the problem in politics. We elect people that we think are going to do X, Y, and Z, and they do nothing that we expect them to do because they aren't even on the same wavelength of thinking that we are on, because they're so stuck in a rut that they don't know how to move forward. And this is what happens. We have a lot of people in Congress, senators, sitting in seats for many, many, many years, and they get stuck when they came in 10 years ago. They have not moved forward.
Well, that's why I'm for term
forward
limits.
thinking.
I think one of the easiest ways to resolve that is term limits. Right?
Mhm,
So one of the
absolutely.
easiest ways to resolve it is term limits.
Yeah.
Term limits is great, and but we got to inspire, like Diane said, forward thinking people and with a vision for the future. And see, the people with the vision for the future, and what disturbs me about people a lot of times when you have this conversation with them is they say they can't see it. And right away I tell them, look, well, you're blind. You're not. They're blind. Their way of thinking is blind. They don't have a vision for what is to come. So if they can't perceive it, it can't be true. And so, that's the difficulty of trying to deal with people. And a lot of this stuff is on purpose. We don't inspire people to get outside of themselves a little bit, just a little bit. And we ain't saying stop being you, but get out and see what the hell's going on. But I gotta. Yeah.
But that's what it says in the Bible. People without a vision will perish.
Yeah.
They will perish because they don't see anything further than where they're at. They can't. They're not dreamers.
They're blind. All right, guys. Have a great day. Have a great day. Peace.
All right.
So I know, Eric, that Deidre, you said, was going to start working with you and talking about her hiring and job stuff and everything. And I know she told me some time ago that she's going to be planning a workshop, and I'm trying to find the information.
Yeah, I'm excited about that, right? So, and my hope is that as we look to we look down the road in the age of COVID-19 and we see how industries are retooling, that along with Deidre offering the opportunities that she may have immediately, that she would be able to help guide some folks in some forward thinking, right, about how to re-engineer themselves, how to work on some professional development during this time that they're self-distancing and self-quarantining and all that kind of stuff, so that they'll be prepared for the new economy that emerges from this. Hello, caller, go.
Yeah, Deidre Viney.
Hi, Deidre. How are you? Good morning.
Hello, Diane. Good morning.
Oh man.
You know what?
Yeah, Diane. See, you don't see me on camera. See, my face just lit up.
You know what? My face would light up too if I got some of that daggone cobbler, whatever you say you make.
Cobbler and bread pudding and all this kind of stuff.
I know. And you know what, Diane? I can't gain an ounce. I'm eating all this stuff, and I cannot gain. I got on the scale this morning. I'm 160 pounds.
Well, you have a problem that some of us would love to have. But Deidre, I was thinking about you last night because somebody sent something over to me, and I thought this was a cute kiki about they're looking for speakers, and they're looking for people to do voiceovers, and they're doing a casting call for this company called Pillow Talk. And I thought about you.
That is not me. I don't know why you thought of me.
No. I thought of the conversation we had one day, and you called me. You said, "What is this? Your seductive voice?" And I said, "Yes, it surely is. This is my voice."
For you? Okay, definitely not for me.
But anyway, what's going on with you? I know you got a workshop coming up online. Give me some information. Tell people about it, how they can get into it.
Yes. So thank you. I have a workshop tomorrow called 10 Tips to Find a Job Now in a COVID-19 World. It's going to be a 30-minute presentation open for questions and answers. I'm hoping it to be very valuable for those that are out of work, or even just some tips for you, even if you are working. I think the tips are valuable to all levels of employment. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping to do these more often, now that there is going to be a very large unemployment rate, as we've heard. And I heard you on the show, Eric, too, talking about that eventually the world is going to open back up and folks are going to need to get to work. And I think these tips will armor them with some really good tools to utilize now while they're home. And some they may know, and some are super, I'm going to say basic, right? But I'm kind of giving a highlight of the tips. And I'm looking to also do some drill down webinars. And what I mean by that is I've done in-person events, obviously, before this, on how to build an effective resume, how to interview effectively, how to do a thorough job search, LinkedIn tips. So I'm hoping from this webinar tomorrow, it will platform me to some other webinars based on what folks want to hear about. So I encourage everyone to register. I'm going to put the registration link in your section here on Facebook Live, if that's okay, unless you suggest another place.
Absolutely. And if I can help, it's tomorrow, you said, right?
It's tomorrow, but like I said, tomorrow's 1, and we are actually garner quite a bit of registrations already, as a matter of fact, and I've only kind of been promoting it since yesterday. So I'm looking to do it probably every Wednesday is what I'm looking at. Wednesday works for me. I might move around the time so that I can give folks a couple different times in the day, maybe at 3 o'clock, maybe at 6 o'clock, maybe even at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
So that it'll be able to be seen by everyone. I'm also going to record it, and so that information will be shared amongst whomever wants to share it, because I think the tips are going to be valuable. And like I mentioned to you, and I'm super excited, Eric, to come on your show, hopefully by next Tuesday, because what I'd like to share is I want to drill down a little bit more. I'm trying to give this as a 30-minute tip, right? Because people are busy, and I understand that, and no one wants to sit there and listen to a 2-hour presentation, 3-hour presentation. But when I've done webinars or, like I said, in-person events on resume writing, for example, it's a half-a-day class. That's how intense it is, because it's a workshop. And so I think that some of the tips I'd like to bring to you when I start next Tuesday, I don't think I'm going to bring all 10, but I might bring 2, maybe 2 a week, and then take questions from the audience as it relates to those 2 tips.
Okay.
And then I can do that week by week and see where it goes.
I think that'd be great.
Quickly, tell people who you are, what company you represent.
Oh, my goodness. I didn't even say that. So my name is Deidre Viney, Express Employment Professionals in Jersey City, New Jersey, helping companies find talented staff in Hudson and Essex County. We have a ton of jobs available, most specifically in Newark, as well as Jersey City, Kearney, and Bayonne. We help companies and employees find all different types of positions, including anything from hotel hospitality, warehouse forklift, to administrative customer service, to professional. So we cover the gamut. Again, I don't do this alone. I have a team of people at Express that support my efforts, and we work together to get you working and get you working quickly.
And how do people get in touch with you if they want to apply for a job?
So the best way, I can also put that in my link. The best thing to do is go to our website. It's expresspros.com/Jersey City. All together, expresspros.com/Jersey City. You can register there and put your application or your resume online. We also have an app. I didn't mention that the last time. We're super excited about that. We have an app in the App Store. It's Express Jobs. Same thing. If you wanted to fill out the application on your phone, please download the app. Obviously, there's also other ways to reach my team. We are also all working remotely, but we are doing interviews every single day, all day, because we need talent, and we need talent for our clients now. So if you go to our website and you fill out an application, you can also text us and let us know that you are looking for a job, and one of my team members will reach out to you. Our telephone number is 201-333-8400. I would encourage you to text because, like I said, we are not in the office physically, but we are all working remotely. Someone's checking those voicemails, and we are responding to text messages throughout the day.
Well, this is exciting. And you know what I'd like you guys to do, too, is maybe in this thread as well, or somewhere where you can communicate the kinds of things that you'd like to, that you're interested in, right? So that as we put this whole piece of the programming together, we're addressing what your needs are. We're not talking around you or over you, but speaking directly to you. That would be the goal.
One more thing.
Yeah, and it's funny you should say that, Eric, because I also sit on the Workforce Investment Board, or I think it's changed its name, Workforce Development Board. I sit on the one for Hudson County, and it's made up of 50%, or 51% of private industry like myself, and the other 49% is government, like there's schools, universities, trade schools, they're also part of it. So the good thing is we're all in the room together, and a lot of what we talk about at our meetings, and they're quarterly, is exactly what you just said, like what are employers looking for? Yeah. Because it makes no sense for me to say that you should do these things and you don't have the skill set that I think a company is looking for now. And so those are really key points that I can certainly bring to the table from my perspective. And like I said, I think last Tuesday when I was on, one of the things that I think an employment agency does help and holds a viable place in the market is that we service 60, 70, sometimes 100 or so companies on a daily basis. So interviewing with us is like interviewing with a lot of companies all at once. Right. So I think it could be a great way to jumpstart a career, get you more experience, and get you working. I mean, some people we interview today, and they're working tomorrow. It can really be that quick.
So, Deidre, one more question. So, because we have a lot of business owners that are listening as well, and they're looking for employees because they are still up and running. Is this same number that you gave available to them to call if they're looking to hire employees and they want to work with your company?
Absolutely, and thank you for that. I have actually been getting quite a bit of clients calling me that we have been talking to and engaging with over these years, and now, there's some businesses, I'll be honest, that are slow, right? We all know that. There are some businesses that are really busy. Like anything related to food is extremely busy right now. So if there's any companies out there that is in need of talent, and sometimes it can be as short as a day, a couple of days, a week, months, it doesn't have to be a long-term commitment. That's another beauty of using a staffing firm. Please do the same thing. Please call us. That voicemail is being checked every hour on the hour by a member of my team, as well as you can text us at the same number, the 201-333-8400. That text messaging, we all see the text messaging, and someone, same thing, is responding repeatedly. So the fastest way to reach us is actually a text message. And then one of the team members will reach out to that business owner.
Okay, one more time, Deidre, because I'm slow with this email and I done got it wrong. What's the email? I mean, not email. What's the website again? One more time.
So the website is www.expresspros, so that's EXPRESSPROS.com / and the slash we determine is below the question mark, at least on my keyboard, Jersey City. Okay. Jersey City's all together.
Got you. Thank you.
Deidre, I'm looking forward to it. I think this is going to be exciting.
I'm looking forward to it as well.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, you said, is the workshop, you still got room for people to sign up to get in?
Yes, we do. Space is definitely limited because on the Zoom platform, you are limited to a certain number of people. So I would encourage everyone. I'm going to put the link in as soon as I hang up the phone. And I'm going to put the link to our Eventbrite. Eventbrite allows us to send you a reminder, even though it's tomorrow.
Okay.
You can register there. Actually, the link is also there. The Zoom link is also there as well. You obviously can't click on it yet because it won't be live until tomorrow. but we are looking forward to providing you some value-added information that I think will be worth your time. Come prepared with some questions. Come prepared with a pen and paper to take some notes. I will also be sharing the presentation with whoever registers. I will be emailing out my PowerPoint slides after the presentation.
Thank you.
Oh, man.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hang up because we got 3 minutes before we hang up. So you can.
All right. Thank you, guys. I will talk to you next Tuesday.
Absolutely.
Bye now.
Bye now. So, all right. So we're trying to help people out, Diane, and see what happens. What else is on the agenda? Did we cover everything?
We covered everything. The last thing is I just got, and for anybody who filled out an application with the Small Business Administration for your business, what they're saying in regards to
did you fill yours out?
What? Did I?
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay.
Yes. I don't miss any opportunities. What they're saying, and this is what I'm about to tell you, what they're saying is this $10,000 advance that they're talking about, this economic injury disaster loan.
That's a loan.
Exactly. What they're saying is to ensure that the greatest number of applicants can receive assistance during the challenging time, that the amount of your advance will be determined by the number of your pre-disaster employees. So if you had 1 employee or 5 employees before this happened, that's the number that they're going based off of. The advance will then provide you $1,000 per employee up to a maximum of $10,000, just so people know. So you're not going to automatically get this $10,000 loan. They're only giving out $1,000 per employee, and they're capping it at $10,000.
And now let me ask you this question, Diane.
Mm-hmm.
From the information that you read, and I know I'm trying to talk quickly. From the information that you read, what are the rules around repayment of the loan as of now?
The terms.
Yeah.
Okay, so no, they didn't give terms, but what they did do is they gave you some other options for a paycheck protection program. That, and the purpose of that one is forgivable. A minimum of 75% of the funds can be received and remains for certain portions of the operating expenses. With the paycheck protection program, you can get up to $10 million with 1% interest rate. It is forgivable. It matures in 2 years, and your first payment is deferred for 6 months.
All right, and now they were also talking about this thing maybe actually becoming a grant if employers kept those employees
for a certain amount of time. So then there's another loan program that they got set up called the EIDL loan, and it's to meet your financial obligations and operating expenses. You can get up to $2 million on this. Businesses can get 3.7% interest rate. Nonprofits 2.75% interest rate. This loan is not forgivable. You can get in advance. The maturity date is 30 years, and you can defer the first payment up to 1 year. So that's the second option for people. They did not send out any information from the Small Business Administration about forgivable grants as of yet. I did see something that was sent to me yesterday, and let me just tell you quickly what that was. That was in regards to business. Here it is. That was through the New Jersey, what is it called? New Jersey Economic Development Small Business Emergency Assistant Grant Program. That's a little different. This one, you can apply for this. I'll put this link on my Facebook page. People can go there and catch it. It provides up to $5,000 to New Jersey-based businesses with employees between 1 and 10 full-time employees. The minimum grant amount is $1,000 per application. The maximum grant amount is $5,000. Total of $5 million is provided for funding. So, of course, like everything else, first come, first serve. It says you must be a registered business in New Jersey. So that means, and you must be in good standing with the state, which means you can't be behind on your taxes unless you're in a payment plan with the state. You have to be a certified registered business with the state, which means you can't be behind on your taxes unless you're on a payment plan. So for those mom and pops that don't pay taxes, you won't qualify for this. You have to be in good standings with the Labor and Workforce Department, and the CEO of the company must certify that in regards to the furlough and layoff, how it was done, and any other financial information. And of course, there's a whole bunch of businesses that don't apply: auctions, travel merchants, Christmas tree stores, illegal business under New Jersey, gambling, gaming activities, adult businesses such as, pornography and stuff like that cannot apply. So there you go. Right. So none of your go-go bars are eligible.
Oh man.
But what I have heard from some persons that work at the go-go bar, some young ladies, is they have now moved their business off the pole and onto the pole in the house, and they're doing online services, and people paying for them too. But did you see?
Wait. So you saying like you have to you have to subscribe to be able to view it?
Yes, they have tapped into a system where you can pay to see it, and they get, of course, a portion, not always what they're supposed to get their full earnings, but they get a portion of what is paid, what they charge to see. Not sure if it's 100% nudity. Don't know, because I did not ask them, actually. I just assumed it was, so I'm not sure about that. And the other thing is, did you see that?
Well, I'm more I want to stay on this one for a second, Diane.
So we can extend the time. Go ahead.
No. I just want to. I'm just trying to understand. So because I would love to, if you know any of these women, I mean, they could remain anonymous. Just call in. I would like to know, like, virtual, because it's virtual now, right? So the whole experience that you're used to when you go to one of these places is that you got the loud music, you got the lights, you got the strobe lights, you got the energy of the crowd, right? Encouraging the dancer on the pole, right? She's feeding off of that energy and doing some pretty extraordinary moves on the pole. So all this is going on, and then you start, and all of that pushes you to start throwing your money at the stage, right? So the ambiance is what drives the contribution, if you will, that a visitor to an establishment such as that is willing to make. But now when you're in the comfort of your own home and you don't have all of those outside things, kind of driving you, outside of your initial payment into, because I wonder, like, outside of your initial payment to view, is there like a button that, like, if she does a certain kind of move, right, you can hit the button and, like, virtual dollars go flying at her? I'm just trying to figure.
Calm down. I'm sure it could be. Not sure. I will ask the person.
Well, see, if it doesn't exist.
However, remember back in the day, 42nd Street, when they had the peep shows, and all you could do was peep and look? I'm sure this is sort of the same thing. All you do is you get to see.
But it only costs you 25 cents
right to that point, and then the screen goes black, and you got to recharge your card again.
No, well, I didn't listen, it wasn't that kind of technology when we would cut school. We would go over there, man. It was 25 cents.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was 25 cents.
Yeah, they was stinky. Anyway. So listen, did you read the article that Black China was criticized for charging people $950 to FaceTime with her, or $250 for Instagram followers for her to do a personal one-on-one with her? Why
is that a problem? I look, God bless her if she can make, you know what, if somebody's willing to pay that money, go get the money. I mean,
you don't
nothing
think
she's doing was illegal.
Advantage of people? You don't think that's just tacky?
Why?
I just said it, because you're taking advantage of your people. You have now, in essence, pimped yourself out for somebody to have a conversation with you.
Diane, listen, do you know what Warren Buffett charges? Warren Buffett charges to have if you want to have lunch with Warren Buffett, do you know what he charges an hour? So my question is, why shouldn't this woman be able to, if it's only worth what the market can bear?
Can dictate.
If she's charging that amount and nobody purchases that time with her, she's going to either lower her price or she's going to do it for free again, right? But if people are willing to pay it, then why not charge it?
So
she's not illegal. She's not doing anything illegal. Listen, I mean, if Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem. I don't have a problem with it.
So she also offers a payment plan for those who can't pay it all up front at once.
Well, again, that's a great marketing strategy. You know what? You want to pay, but you can't pay all now. You can pay half now, and you can pay, a portion later, right?
So that was so funny because they also mentioned that Tori Spelling was recently under fire for charging $95 for a virtual meet and greet with her husband, Dean McDormand, then posted a lengthy video on Instagram in which he slammed the critics. So I guess you say it's okay. They say it's okay. If you paying, they playing.
Yes. I see nothing wrong with that. If the person who's willing to pay sees some value in it and they say, you know what, I want that, so I'm going to pay for it, and the person on the other end is offering a service and they actually provide that service that the person's paying for, it was a fair transaction. I don't have a problem with it. To me, it's kind of like if I got a baseball card of Babe Ruth and I'm selling it for $1 million, somebody could say, well, it's just a baseball card. But if that person's willing to pay $1 million for it, then, hey, leave me alone. Let me get my $1 million.
Yeah, well, you can also watch her on Instagram for free. So go figure.
But you can't watch her on Instagram for free.
I guess it's the same as people paying to go see a hologram of Whitney Houston.
Well,
I just don't get it.
There you go. Or Michael Jackson. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go make that money. Listen, I want to be her agent.
Then maybe you need to fork up your $950 so you can have a conversation with her.
And then I write it off as a business expense.
Exactly.
See how it works, people. See how it works. Well, listen. Thank you all for tuning in. There was another thing, but we'll talk about it another day. I'm going to post the article. It says, this is very interesting. It says black men can't wear face masks and not expect negative reactions.
There was a big thing. Georgia, there's a law against face masks.
Yeah,
and they're trying to get the governor to pull back.
But
he hasn't.
In the age of COVID-19, how they see us, right? See, we put masks on is not to cover. It's not to cover us from contracting COVID-19. It's to keep us from being identified by the popo. That's at least what they think. And so again, no matter what we do, right? We're always kind of, And then last thing, I know I said that was the last thing. I posted an article that asked the question. It was very interesting how people responded to it, Diane. It was from BBC asking whether or not Black history should be taught year-round, right? And folks, kind of came in and said, well, all history should be taught, So here are a couple of comments. So the headline says, should Black history be taught all year round? And then the comments were, every aspect of man's journey should be visited each and every grade level. That was one. And somebody else says, yes, solved. Another person says, yes. And then this person says, that's a stupid question. And we also get somebody who says, as it should be, history is history, no matter the color. Why can't we just say, yeah, Black history needs to be taught? Like, why does it have to...
They don't want to uprising in the slave quarters. Because if we know ourselves,
we didn't ask the question. But I'm saying the question wasn't asked, should all history be taught? There was a very specific question that was asked in that article about should Black history be taught, and the uncomfortableness that some people feel without just going, yeah, it should be taught. It has to get to, well, all history. See, no, I'm talking Black history. Should Black history, yes or no? Should it be taught? Now, if you want to talk about some other history, let's talk about other history. But should Black history be taught? Let's answer that question. I don't want to always be lumped into everybody else.
I say yes.
Yes.
I say all the time.
Yes.
Every day, all day.
Yes. Thank you. Oh, wait a minute. Did you hear, you ever hear the album? I know, Diane. I'm lonely. Well, I got Amina here, but it's still cabin fever. I want to go out. I want to socialize.
Go sit in the backyard. Calm down.
Have you ever heard the album, and put it in a thread if you guys have, Bill Cosby, Yes, Yes, Yes?
No.
You've never heard that? Oh my God, Diane. I'm going to send you the link to it. You will laugh your tail off.
I got one funny, and my daughter asked me the other day, why do people even have albums? I said, because that's what became before cassettes and everything else. Like,
she said, what's a cassette?
The only thing she knows as far back is an MP3 player and a CD player.
That's what I'm
Anything
saying. She's like, what's a cassette, mommy?
She doesn't even know that the hot, the decorative high fires that you had in the house with the record player, the old fashioned ones, were inside like this case and everything. It looks like a piece of furniture. She didn't know that's what that was in the living room. I said, that's the record player in there, and that's the speakers on the side. She was like, oh. Wow. I never, it's not just the credenza. We made it a credenza after we stopped playing the record.
That's crazy.
Man.
Yo, hit her up and show her what a 8-track looks like.
Exactly. Yeah, I probably got 1 or 2 left in the house. Oh, I know. I have a few I kept for nostalgia purposes. Yeah.
I love my 8-track. My first one was a red one. Listen, I'm going to send you the link to Yes, 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 Diane. You're going to laugh your ass off. And I'll put the link in there for anybody who hasn't heard it. It's a very hysterical.
Is he as funny as Mom's Mabley? Because I remember listening to that as a kid.
No, you're going to. No.
My mother running downstairs and snatching the needle off the album.
No. When you hear this, you're going to. If you had stitches, you'd bust them. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.